Hello, welcome along. This is David Beard. I'm the CRM principal with Sage Technologies, the company behind Sage CRM. I work to support the worldwide education and the promotion of the Sage CRM product. I guess you call me an evangelist. I'm all about conveying the business value of CRM and articulating what the product can bring to you, your business, through various online and in-person activities, much of which has been the former, and this is another example of it. I'm based in London, but you can keep up with me on Twitter at TalkCRM and of course on the Sage CRM community and in these learning series. If those of you who've been with the series for a while, you'll know that this is all about helping you understand the world of Sage CRM and what it can offer to your business. We want you to hopefully give consideration to the business management tool that is Sage CRM and how you can use it to build success for your teams in the front office of your business, whatever you do. You have the basis of business management in your Sage accounting solution, but we want to share through these examples of how a customer relationship management CRM solution can help you save time, reduce paperwork, and provide you with much greater visibility and control over your business results. What we're doing with this and the following session is listening to some previous interviews with Sage CRM specialists around the world, how they got into CRM, what they do with the product, and some examples of their expertise in action with their customers. Let's make a start. We've got 3 to listen to in this episode. That's TimeLink Software, Blytheco, and Cumulus Solutions. Let's start with TimeLinks. Back in early 2021, Jeff, my colleague, and I spoke with Mark Engelberg, the founder and CEO of TimeLink Software, which is a time and project management solution that sits in Sage CRM. TimeLinks works with Sage CRM to deliver total financial visibility, particularly suited for those customers who work with and deliver projects. It offers project and service management functionality inside the Sage CRM product, helping you track marketing campaigns into project sales opportunities and ultimately service delivery and everything that wraps around that. It's about end-to-end control and reporting in all sorts of industries. Listening back to our interview, we thought Mark's commentary about his own challenges with time and financial management in a previous business was interesting. Here's a 6-minute snippet from that conversation.
So I got involved in CRM, first of all, because I had a challenge with a bigger part of my business, because CRM is just part of a whole, and that whole is typically an accounting system, which we all have. And so I got involved in it because I needed a way to track what was going on with prospective customer relationships. And it was not a technology business at all in the automotive industry. And so that's when I got involved in CRM. But over time, what happened is I realized how important it was to connect CRM to the accounting part of the business, meaning that the work that we were doing and the people that we talked to turned into services. And so services was the driving revenue of the business. And so now I had a relationship management system, my CRM, and then I had all sorts of tools that I was using to manage services, and that was spreadsheets and a project system, Microsoft project, and then my accounting system, and none of them were connected. And that became the genesis for TimeLinks, was how do I find a way to put something between the CRM system, which was leading up to a sale, if I think of it as prospects, turning into customers, which is the C in CRM, and then ultimately having to bill them for work that we were doing.
And so in the gnarly days of projects, Mark, in theory with Microsoft Project and other tools, you could sort of pass data back and forwards, right? So what was the gap for you, and why did you end up going down the road of building your own?
Well, the gap was the Microsoft Project, as sophisticated as it was, there were not the APIs that there were. There was certainly no concept of server-based tools. These were all desktop applications. And it really was not that easy, especially to try to fit the data in a format that was going to be acceptable to Microsoft Project. There was just really no easy way to do it. And what I discovered easily was that the adaptability of the CRM, the ability to add additional data elements to the CRM system, new tables, customizations, as it might be called, or tailoring, made it ideal for saying, well, I have some additional data that I need to store about my customers that I have no other place to put. And so I said, if I add a table, for example, to store what products they purchased from me, and I can connect that in my CRM, what an ideal place to put it. Because then I could bring up the customer record and I could see exactly what they purchased from me before. And that extended then to services. What services did we deliver to them? And perhaps even beyond that, what did we charge for those services? And what products did we deliver?
So you mentioned earlier this combination of using project tools. So immediately I think of PERT charts and Gantt charts and all that sort of stuff. How did it morph from carrying product and service information into project management?
Well, the project management part really became part of a daily struggle. It was a very instantaneous idea that said, I've got people every day who were sending in spreadsheets every week with their time records on it that we needed to retype to put into the accounting system to send invoices out. That was one set of spreadsheets. The other set of spreadsheets where they were also traveling to customer locations and sending in expense reports for their mileage, which they needed to be reimbursed. And then I also need to bill some of the customers, but not all of the customers perhaps, for those expenses. Then, of course, it became obvious that I had to bill customers different amounts. Some customers I was charging one rate per hour and another customer a different rate per hour. And where was I going to keep track of all of that? And then I had staff that, of course, makes different amounts of money. Some people were making one amount per hour, people were making a different amount per hour. And so there's a cost factor. And so that became part of job costing. How do I get that into my accounting system? And all of that became the genesis for what turned into TimeLinks, which was, how do I put all of this in one place that would give me all that data on the fly and would allow my people to enter their own data rather than me having to enter it after they send in a spreadsheet.
You touched on job costing there, and oftentimes I've heard people say to me, yeah, I've got job costing in my accounting system, so that takes care of all that. Where's the gap for you then, apart from making it one system, which is obviously beneficial?
The gap is that someone has to type that into the accounting system, rather than a system that knows that John makes X pounds per hour, or X dollars per hour, or X dirhams per hour, that's our cost for his work. That no longer needs to be typed in. If John records an hour of work in the system, it knows immediately what the cost was. There's your job cost. Why make someone else type that in and figure it out when John could just type in his hours and that can translate electronically to a cost? And the same thing held true for the revenue side. If John types in an hour and I know that I'm billing the customer X amount per hour, whatever the unit is, have someone have to retype that. And the retyping has two impacts. One is there are mistakes that are made. There is a time gap receiving the information from John out in the field a week later, perhaps at the end of the week, and then having to type that in. And then there is the other problem with an ERP system, and using that as the front end for all of this is what's commonly called a pro forma invoice. Pro forma invoice means we have to print out something that the project manager has to review and make sure that John put his time into the correct task or the correct project, that he didn't choose it in by mistake on the spreadsheet, or he used the wrong cost code or some other mechanical error that people make. Mm-hmm. And so that's another time lag there, which is running a pro forma invoice, sending that to John or to John's manager. John's manager reviews it for 6 people and then sends it back all marked up with pencil saying this is a mistake, change this, wrong rate, wrong cost, whatever it might be, sending it back. That gets retyped again into the accounting system and corrected, sent back again to the manager to review it once more, make sure it's correct, and then send it back and say this is fine. Or maybe it's not and it needs another correction. By the time you do all of that, you've got a delay of 2 weeks or more to send an invoice out, and that's a cash flow problem.
So that's a 6-minute snippet. If you'd like to hear more, there are 3 other episodes, around about half an hour's worth of total material, where Mark continues to discuss the technology of TimeLinks, how it works inside Sage CRM, and how he makes it work for any business, with stories of the product in use around the world, and the return on investment metrics he sees for customers that take it on and use it with Sage 50, Sage 100, Sage 300, and Sage X3. If you're interested in hearing more of that, you can listen to all the 3 episodes on sagethoughtleadership.com. Just search for the term TimeLinks. Our second snippet, Jeff and I spoke with Basil Malik. He's the CRM practice leader of the leading Sage North America partner, Blitheco. Basil who's based in Tulsa, Oklahoma, has been working with Sage CRM since 2013, and he's responsible for working with and growing the CRM practice of Blytheco for their many thousands of customers across North America. Blytheco as a business are all about leveraging software together with consulting to empower their clients and enable their own business growth. Jeff and I thought the commentary from Basil about the value of integrating front and back office systems, along with how CRM can be part of a business's onboarding of their own customers, was an interesting take on success with CRM. So here's a 6-minute snippet from that conversation, where we started the chat by asking Basil how he got started with CRM and what it means to him.
Really got interested in CRM in general just from the overall atmosphere of the front office. There's always a buzz about it, and then seeing how technology integrates and really enables them to do the most with their time on a regular basis is kind of what got me hooked. And then from there, just diving into Sage CRM and how it integrates with Sage 100, and then kind of expanding from there.
You talked about being hooked, Basil, and getting into the integrating the front and back office idea then. Why should people in finance care about CRM? What does it mean to them?
Well, for the most part, the evolution of the CFO role and people in the finance role in general, there's a very inherent nature of enablement using a CRM. Take collections, for example. If you've got someone that's based in the AR clerk role and their goal is to make sure that they reconcile all the accounts, all their AR balances cleared in a relatively quick manner, makes money for the company, and they're not having to spend more resources and time trying to get the money collected from their customers. Where CRM comes into play is it can actually be proactive. Rather than running a report on X number of days, seeing who's doing it, it really does give them the capability of seeing who is on track to not pay their bill on time. And then from there, track who from the organization is reaching out to the customer's office to try and solicit that. Management is not having to second guess what's happening. And that's just from the AR role. From the AP side, I mean, if you've got a process to try and negotiate rates or anything like that, you can actually do it on a timetable and then make sure that you're always getting the best rates from your vendors. So those are just two very simple examples of how CRM can really enable the finance. To take it a step further, onboarding of new customers. People that utilize CRM typically track lead conversations, prospect conversations, and then eventually the conversion from a lead to a prospect or a prospect to a customer can be somewhat clunky. Having a process built in something like a Sage CRM, for example, you can automate the email that goes out to them. You can standardize it to make sure the same message is sent to every single customer that you're onboarding. You can ensure that they're getting the material that incentivizes them to submit their credit application, their business profile, so on and so forth. That way, when it comes back in, you can also save that to the CRM, but also have a basis of why a customer was set up a certain way within the Sage 100 or your ERP system.
So I'm interested in that onboarding discussion. That's not something that anyone's expressed in those terms to me before, which is I find fascinating. Can I delve into that a bit further? Every business, am I right in thinking that every business has an onboarding process of some sort?
I mean, you'd like to hope so. And think of it like a cookie cutter in that, right? You always want to get, at the bare minimum, a set amount of information from a given customer. If you automate or streamline that using something like workflow within Sage CRM, for example, you can have a step-by-step process of the onboarding and make sure that no one misses any particular data point or getting credit references, so on and so forth.
Okay, so that means let's go with the assumption that most customers do have some sort of onboarding process for their own customers. What happens without CRM, and how do people do it at the moment?
It honestly can be a bit of the Wild West. Accounting may have a tendency to go and create a customer within Sage 100, which can automatically push that same record over to Sage CRM and duplicate the effort. So now you've got two disparate records that somehow have to be reconciled. That is one very large glaring benefit of automating it and keeping it within Sage CRM.
And why is it a problem to have it with that back office, front office split? What's the issue when you say having to rectify it or reconcile it? What's the problem?
The biggest problem is that someone's tracking all of their communications, all their emails, all their phone calls with the lead or the prospect. So that's under one record within the CRM. And then someone in finance goes and creates it and then doesn't connect it to the right record. So now you have one record that has all of the history under one record, and then one that looks completely blank. So if you've got any type of attachments that you've sent to them or any emails or phone calls, now you have to go through the process of, connecting the two of them.
And from your many years working with your current partner reseller and also your previous experience, how have you introduced the subject of why this matters, particularly if someone's already got an accounting system like Sage 100? How do you convince them that the way to do things should be improved with CRM?
With the evolution of the CFO role in general and finance working more in line with the rest of the C-suite, you're starting to see more integrated discussions. The conversation typically starts with the finance role and then trying to sell them on the concept of, hey, you can track all of your collection efforts within the CRM and actually have a standardization process. You can have dashboard gadgets that point out proactively, hey, this customer hasn't paid their bill in 40 days. They typically conduct outreaches 45 days or later, or whatever the threshold might be. From there, that's when you kind of get their attention, and then you start wrapping that into the sales and operations pieces, sales, marketing, customer service. You start illustrating how you can leverage workflows in tandem with the sales order entry process so that people can either create quotes or orders from Sage 100 and then have it land within the workflow, do everything within Sage CRM and initiate quotes and orders there so that you have a very clear capture of sales, marketing, customer service efforts.
That's a 6-minute snippet of a half-hour interview we did with Basil. He continues with his conversations on things like gaining interest from CRM, with starting in the accounting team of customers, and how they can themselves value add to their own data and processes across the rest of the business. Basil also walks us through some examples of customers who have benefited from this approach. If you're interested in hearing more from Basil and his work on Sage CRM, you could listen to all 3 of his episodes on sagethoughtleadership.com. Just search for the term Blytheco, Blytheco. Moving on to our final snippet for this session, Jeff and I spoke with Danny Lewis, who's the founder and owner of the UK's #1 Sage CRM partner, Cumulus Solutions. That's Cumulus with a Q. They're one of the leading Sage CRM partners globally and a core strategic partner and ISV developer, independent software vendor for Sage. We thought Danny's commentary about his history with the Sage CRM product and how he ended up starting his specialist reseller was interesting. Here's a 6-minute snippet from our conversation. We started the chat by asking Danny how he morphed from working on the Sage CRM product into starting his own Sage CRM business that specializes and has become the trusted CRM partner in the UK market for the Sage 200, 50, X3 and other products.
Whilst I was doing Sage CRM, predominantly in the UK at least, a lot of the people that deliver Sage software to business partners are accounts focused. They would sell an account system such as Sage 50, Sage 200 in the UK, and the CRM product would be an integration added onto it, and it would have its own benefits, etc. But those projects were predominantly run as accounts implementation projects, and the CRM part was sort of tagged into it, run as almost in the account structure, whereas CRM projects are a lot more fluid. There's a lot more investigation required. There's a lot more sort of understanding of business processes. So it's not just about ledgers, etc. It's much more about understanding the pains and needs of businesses and being able to get them to articulate those issues to you, and then for you to be able to then deliver that within the Sage CRM product. It was a sort of natural progression to look at how I wanted to implement CRM systems rather than implementing them as an integrated solution.
It's interesting you say that. We've talked on a couple of the other episodes with other partners about this idea that CRM is much more a grey area rather than a binary implementation. Do you need a chart of accounts? What reports do you need? Is that your interpretation of it as well?
100%, yes, exactly right. And not only that, but the CRM system is quite often like a sort of living, breathing thing. It's always changing and evolving. And your relationship with customers is a journey for both of you as a partnership, not just I'm providing some software and support if it goes wrong. People are always looking at new ways that they want their business to go, new directions, maybe new ways they want to use CRM. So people that wanted to start doing support tickets that they hadn't done before, or there's a marketing requirement, and the way in which they use the system is quite fluid. It's not unknown to add fields and then 6 months later take those fields away because they've changed the process or have repurposed or have not doing that particular short-term thing.
Right. So what you've highlighted there is your interest really was in that more fluid type arrangement. And you've also said that the integrated story was often dealt with by some partners as trying to be an accounts implementation. So I'm guessing you didn't see that working very well, and that's what inspired you to start your own business?
Yeah, it was along those lines. I mean, I wouldn't say that those implementations were overly bad, but with an accounts implementation, you could say, for example, Sage 200 financials and commercials with some training, with some implementation, it's 10 days. And you might add another module, that might add another day or two on, or take a module off, etc. So you can fairly easily predict and therefore cost a particular project that the customer's going to buy. But with a CRM project, you either need to deliver it out of the box or you need to scope it very heavily. And a lot of that happens at the start, and that can end up elongating both the sales cycle and also increasing the cost to the customer. And it can be seen sometimes, depending on how it's sold, as a slight barrier to implementing an account system. And so what would invariably happen is that the CRM product would be pitched as this is what it can do, and we're going to deliver that in phase 2. And quite often that phase 2 never came around. What we try and do is we actually implement accounts and CRM systems, but as a solution. Rather than looking at it as two different modules that have their own thing, we would pitch the whole solution of a back office and a front office application. And the back office application, therefore, we can change. It could be Sage 50 or Sage 200 or Sage X3. That's part of the solution, but it's not product led as far as the account system in the way that we sell.
So you very much lead with CRM being the core, the beginning point, the entry to it all, and then you would apply the accounts implementation within that. Has that been a recipe for success for you then in your business?
We quite quickly become the number one partner in the UK and have held that position for quite a while now as far as sales volume is concerned. And so there's proven success, I guess, with how we deliver, how we at least pitch and sell our projects and scope our projects to show that customers are happy with the way in which we put the solution together. That's been ongoing in where we sit with that. And we've consistently sold quite a lot of the CRM seats in the UK, and we've grown to be a business partner that pretty much all of the other business partners know about. But we're also on top of that trusted, or we like to think we're trusted within the community, being able to give advice and direction about whether the product's suitable, what can it do, what can't it do. And that sort of led into our additions and add-ons that we've been providing both for our customers and other business partners.
So I want to talk to you about the add-ons as well in a moment, if I may. You touched there on the idea of integrating CRM with Sage 50 or Sage X3, and we know that traditionally the product Sage CRM is positioned with the Sage 200 franchise products, and in the UK it actually is called Sage 200. Have you used different tools and techniques to connect to other tools like 50, like X3?
Well, when we first started, there was a couple of tools that we'd used to connect to Sage 50, but because they weren't our own authored products, you're always sort of limited by the way in which those integrations work. So we took the decision fairly early on to start developing and writing our own integration into Sage 50, the UK version of Sage 50. If I'm honest, that's been one of the key reasons for our success. The amount of customers that have bought Sage CRM from us initially, but also from other partners as they started reselling our add-ons, it's grown and grown and grown. Having the ability to tailor and flex and change that integration, not just to match our customers, but other partners, has really been one of the sort of key driving points behind our success as a business.
If you'd like to hear more, Danny continues the conversation, talking about technical trends he's seeing and why this matters to customers, plus a conversation about skills gaps in both resellers and customers and why that matters in making CRM successful. You can listen to all 3 episodes at sagethoughtleadership.com. Just search for the term Cumulus, Qmuls. That brings us to the end of today's session. There'll be another one where we talk to other partners coming shortly. Just a reminder as a close, we've been working with small to medium-sized companies for over 30 years, helping thousands of businesses to acquire, retain, and delight their own customers and achieve their own business ambitions. Using Sage CRM, our customers save time, increase productivity, and gain greater visibility across their business. Additionally, thousands of Sage CRM customers have enjoyed increased sales and bigger business growth. It enables them to tailor and tune their marketing, sales, and customer service functions to work together better, sharing information, managing interactions, whoever they deal with at whatever stage of that process. Sage CRM is an affordable and easy-to-use solution that over 16,000 small and medium-sized businesses around the world have looked to grow their own business. So that's the end of today's session. Thanks for joining us. There's lots more real-life examples of the customers and what they do with Sage CRM on sagecrm.com. That's all for now. Join us next time. Thanks for listening.